So over the past month, I have been rewatching every main saga Star Wars movie, which is something I try to do in full at least once a year. It's safe to say there are definitely certain episodes I revisit more than others, but it's really no competition as to which movie I watch the most, that being Revenge of the Sith, which is up there with my most viewed movies of all time. While I was watching it earlier this week, it really got me thinking of just how much quality Star Wars content came out in 2005. Specifically, the staggering number of Star Wars games that all released in one single year. These days, we're lucky if we get a single Star Wars game every 2 years, and whether or not it will be good at launch is another matter entirely. But 2005 had the bases loaded with all-time classics, and while I was doing the research for this video, my jaw was quite literally on the floor when I realized just how close together the release dates of these games that I consider to be all-time greats were to each other. At the beginning of 2005, there is no way that LucasArts wasn't completely aware they had an incredible year in store for Star Wars fans.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Now before I go any further, I want to make something clear. This video is not solely based on nostalgia. With one exception, I went back and revisited each of these games. Fortunately for me, the majority are easily accessible on Origin Access, which I happen to already pay for. I downloaded and played them in order of release, starting with the first Star Wars game released in 2005, Republic Commando.
Did I miss anything important?
No. Did you get the data?
Yeah, they searched me, but I hid the data pretty well.
Where exactly?
You don't want to know.
Roger that. Deltas, move out!
To this day, I would still consider Republic Commando to be among my all-time favorite Star Wars single-player campaigns, and there have been a lot of them. Republic Commando puts you right in the center of Delta Squad, an elite clone commando unit made up of Scorch, Fixer, Sev, and you, Delta 38 or Boss. From the very beginning, the game makes it clear that you are special, you are better than the other clones, and the game certainly makes you feel that way every chance it gets. The weapons are unique and in some cases absurdly powerful, your squad mates are both hilarious and very useful when given orders, and the biggest surprise to me was how good this game still looks. For 2005, this game is graphically incredible. Compared to the other games I was playing around this time, Republic Commando looks downright hyper-realistic. The game is also loaded with John Williams' score, which elevates anything it touches, as well as a ton of original music composed for this game, and the main theme is one I still revisit on a monthly basis. I am going to refrain from talking about this game's ending because I don't want to spoil it for anyone watching who hasn't played Republic Commando. Even though this game is 14 years old at this point, it is still well worth a playthrough. I would just love to be able to experience this game again for the first time. Truthfully, it really isn't even the game's central narrative that keeps you invested. The actual plot is interesting, but it's not the main attraction. That would be Delta Squad themselves. Sev in particular is hilarious, and you, Delta 38, have so many great one-liners.
An elegant weapon for a more civilized time, huh? Well, guess what? Times have changed.
You can pick up Republic Commando for like $4 on G2A or $10 on Steam, so if you have a PC and the means, I would wholeheartedly recommend it. This game and the characters were so beloved, Delta Squad ended up getting a brief cameo in the Clone Wars, which fortunately saved them from the Disney canon purge. The ridiculous thing about 2005 is that just 5 weeks after the release of Republic Commando, fans were treated to another Star Wars game, one that I'm pretty sure every single person watching this video is familiar with.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a Jedi Knight will face his destiny. Or build a new one.
LEGO Star Wars the video game is the game that started a trend that still hasn't died to this day. Before 2005 and LEGO Star Wars, LEGO games were a completely different affair. They weren't the third-person action-adventure games we've come to love, they were mostly puzzle games and construction simulators. Furthermore, before Star Wars, LEGO had mostly stayed away from using licensed properties in their video games, other than a couple of poorly selling Harry Potter creator games in the early 2000s, which I only recently found out existed. Considering LEGO Star Wars the video game was such a drastic change in direction, it is truly remarkable just how good the first LEGO Star Wars is. If you are unaware, the first LEGO Star Wars was released in 2005 and covers episodes 1 through 3. LEGO Star Wars II, the original trilogy, is pretty self-explanatory, and LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga is the game that combined both into one. Same levels and characters for the most part, but bundled into one game. The Complete Saga is the version I had when I was younger, and is the only version you can buy on Steam, and because it's quite literally 2 games in one, you get an incredible amount of content. Like I mentioned though, it is crazy to think about the trend the first LEGO Star Wars set off. Since 2005, LEGO games have taken on every licensed property under the sun and have sold over 100 million copies, completely on the shoulders of one really incredible game. So you know how like 90 seconds ago I said that LEGO Star Wars released just 5 weeks after Republic Commando? Well, take a guess how long it was until fans were treated to yet another major Star Wars game. I don't know, 4 months maybe? 3 months? 2 months? Try less than 1 month, 28 days to be exact. On May the 4th of 2005, just 15 days prior to the US release of Episode 3, fans were treated to the movie tie-in game, mostly based on the events of Revenge of the Sith. I have to say, the teaser trailer for this game is the most 2005 thing I have ever witnessed.
Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, the video game. Before you see the movie, live it. Rated T for teen.
I'd really love to know the thought process behind using a generic rock song for background music when you have access to a then brand new soundtrack provided by John Williams. Somebody really dropped the ball there. However, despite the bad trailer, this game is, in my ever so humble opinion, the single most underrated Star Wars game of all time. I haven't played every Star Wars game ever, of course, but that's just my opinion. I should clarify that when I'm talking about this game, I'm referencing the console version. There were also versions released for both the Game Boy Advance and DS. I have no experience with either of those, so I have no idea if they're good or hot garbage. However, I can tell you that the PS2 version is great in more ways than one. To start, the single-player campaign was damn good. Truthfully, movie tie-ins generally get a really bad rap, but from my experience, there were a lot of good ones. Honestly, some of my most played games from my younger years were movie tie-ins. Shrek 2 was one I played constantly. I don't know how I feel about admitting that. The first 3 Harry Potter movie tie-ins were great, and Revenge of the Sith was another one that was so good, I would put it right up there with Shrek 2 the video game. I'm not sure if that's a joke or not, but getting back to Revenge of the Sith, the story mode was a lot of fun, even though it was really short, clocking in at about 4 hours. You alternated between Anakin and Obi-Wan throughout the 17 levels, and short movie clips were spliced in between the cutscenes. The gameplay is split up between more open hack-and-slash platforming levels and boss levels where you duel with the major antagonists of Episode 3. Admittedly, there are some bizarre changes to the story in the game adaptation, like Anakin just murders Windu on his own, Palpatine doesn't pressure him or anything, and he certainly doesn't deliver the final blow. Windu threatens Palpatine, and then Anakin just murders him in cold blood. Same with Dooku, there is no encouragement from Palpatine, Anakin just impales the man instead of beheading him like in the movie. Also, Padme doesn't appear in the game once. I don't think she's even mentioned, which is just bizarre as she is the reason Anakin goes down the path he does, at least when he does. He might have turned anyway even without Padme in the picture, but Revenge of the Sith just doesn't work without Padme. The gameplay is really fun, but following the story at all definitely requires you to have seen the movie and fill in the blanks, which really isn't a problem for anyone playing the game these days. Also worth mentioning, and this is probably what the game is most known for, the campaign has a really cool alternate ending to the Obi-Wan and Anakin duel on Mustafar, which could be unlocked after beating the final mission.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
Don't try it!
Excellent work, my apprentice. There are none left to oppose us. The galaxy Your new weapon, Lord Vader.
No! The galaxy belongs to me!
However, while I've been praising the campaign for the most part, a 4-hour experience, no matter how fun, really can't warrant me saying this is the most underrated Star Wars game of all time. What makes this game something I still revisit on my PS2 to this day is not the campaign, but the multiplayer or versus mode. The dueling in this game is so much fun, and it doesn't take itself too seriously, which is something I've always appreciated. Some of the matchups are just goofy. You have the mirror matches, I believe they're called, which pits each of the playable characters against an alternate version of themselves. So Anakin versus Dark Anakin, Vader versus Light Side Vader. You even have Grievous facing off against a version of himself with 4 red lightsabers. Speaking of Grievous, because he doesn't have force powers, they just give him a blaster in addition to his lightsabers, which is so much fun and was honestly something I was hoping to see from the recent Battlefront II. A blaster lightsaber hybrid has so much potential to be a very unique hero in that game. You also have the bonus mission on the original Death Star, which allows players to choose old Ben Kenobi and Vader. And in this mission, for some reason, Vader can use Force Lightning, which I don't think would work with his suit, but it's fun, and that's all that matters in a game like this. The combat is smooth, it's not spammy, it's thoughtful and tactical. Of the major Star Wars titles released in 2005, this is the only one that doesn't get enough credit. The others get a lot of completely due praise, but Revenge of the Sith, probably because of the stigma associated with movie tie-in games, doesn't get that same respect from most. If you get a chance, give this game a try. It isn't available on Steam, you'd have to either find yourself a physical copy or go about other means of getting your hands on it, but I highly recommend it. If you haven't noticed, all 3 of the games we've discussed released within just over 2 months of each other, with Republic Commando dropping at the very end of February, and the Episode 3 video game releasing the first week of May. However, there was still one huge Star Wars title left on the release slate for 2005, and it's a game that needs no real introduction on this channel, as it was the original Star Wars Battlefront II, released on November 1st of 2005, which was also the release date of Episode 3 on DVD.
And when the saga ends, the battle begins. Fans who want to live the adventure can play 2 full levels from the sequel to the best-selling Star Wars video game of all time in the Xbox demo of the new Star Wars Battlefront II. Your move.
I don't really know if I need to validate this game's existence. The original Battlefront II is probably the most widely praised Star Wars game ever. I don't think I've ever met anyone who doesn't like this game, and if for some reason your cold black heart hates this absolute classic, well, chances are you're an asshole, or maybe just a little dumb. I should say, while I did play this game a lot when it came out, I never owned this game myself until recently, but when I was a kid, everyone else did. I would visit friends' houses and play Battlefront 2 for hours on end after school, but I never had the game myself, even though I really wanted it. I don't mean to carbon date myself here, but when Battlefront 2 was new, I was about 5 or 6 years old, so I wasn't able to just jump in my car and pick this up. I mean, I did have a car at the time, but it was a little slow, and it gave me a lot of problems. It was in the shop constantly, which is understandable with the first car. I don't mean to insult the quality of the Little Tykes Cozy Coupe, but I am getting off topic. Either way, I spent a lot of time on Battlefront 2 when it was the Star Wars game to play, and made a lot of memories with friends that will never leave me. Battlefront 2 had it all, and while EA's Battlefront 2 has come a hell of a long way from launch, as far as content goes, the original still has it beat. The number of heroes, planets, game modes, and weapons included is still impressive to this day. It's clear Pandemic put a ton of love into this game, and for the last 14 years, Star Wars fans have been pouring that love back into it. The modding community for this game is still very alive. So that was the state of Star Wars games in 2005. 4 games that were all, in my opinion, excellent, and quite honestly, I would say Star Wars Battlefront 2, Republic Commando, and LEGO Star Wars all deserve a spot in the top 10 Star Wars games of all time, maybe even top 5, and every single one of them released in the same year, which is mind-boggling. Well guys, that is going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like, and if you are new around here, make sure you subscribe so you never miss a future upload. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
I'm solo.